Hi there, Digi here, and I'm going to address a comment that I have been getting a lot on my videos lately. See, some of you have been following the links that I put in the descriptions of my videos or on my channel to get to my anime list, the list of all the shows that I've seen, whether I've completed them, put them on hold, dropped them, or am currently watching them. And a lot of people notice that I have a lot of dropped shows. I have almost as many dropped shows as I do completed shows. In fact, in reality, the dropped shows list would be much larger, but I only mark shows on my anime list if I at least completed one episode. There's a lot of shows that I don't finish the first episode of. I watch 5 to 15 minutes and then I just stop. So in reality, I probably have about 700 dropped shows, much more than the amount of shows I've completed. A lot of people get confused by this. So I wanted to explain why I drop so many shows, because I think it says something about the way I watch anime and the way everyone else does. And people act like I'm the weird one for this, but honestly, the way that I watch anime is the only way that makes any sense to me, and I think everyone else is crazy for doing it any other way. So that's why I'm going to explain myself. Before I begin, there's two general concepts that predicate the methodology behind why I watch shows this way. Firstly, that there is no bad genre of anime. There have been shows in every genre that I liked. A lot of people decry stuff like fan service harem shows. I just watched two of them that were pretty good. No Kome, Yushibu. I enjoyed both of them. They weren't masterpieces, but if I had just been like, oh, generic harem light novel adaptation with overly long title, I'm not going to give that a chance. Wouldn't have seen these two shows. And also the idea that that not everyone knows what's good. Or rather that no one knows what's good except me. Rather, no one knows what's good for me except me. See, when I got into anime in a big way, into like fan sub anime back in 2007, this was when fan subs were first getting big, and not every show got watched the way they do now. Like now, a season chart comes out, and the chart has the names of every show that's coming out, and almost all of it gets released on streaming, or it's subbed within like a day. Even like magical girl shows for kids are subbed within like a day. That didn't used to happen. You didn't get Precure subs in 2007, not in a timely fashion anyway. That kind of stuff would take months. And a lot of shows would come out, go completely under the radar. No one would pay attention to them. There'd be shows that you never even heard about until much later, and shows that took forever to get subbed. All the Shaft shows used to take an eternity to get subbed. It took months after Hidamari's Sketch or Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei were over before they were done getting subtitled. So these shows would get overlooked. People didn't talk about them. People didn't know about them. So you could not just rely on word of mouth to hear about every good show, or to hear about every show, period. You had to go and just watch everything and see if it was good. And to me, nothing is less helpful than a plot description, like the ones that they have on AniChart. Those tell you nothing. When have you ever watched a show and gone back and read the description and been like, yeah, that's exactly what I got out of the show. That's what it was to me, It'll be like, a boy comes home from school and a girl falls out of the sky, and now he has to deal with that. And that could either be some generic show about literally a girl falls from the sky and then it's her panties in the guy's face every episode, or it could turn out to be like some commentary on the nature of God by way of divine intervention, but as given to you through anime tropes. Like it could be some crazy subversive bullshit that doesn't sound like the premise at all. And I also care a lot about the aesthetic of shows. So when a show comes out, the most important thing for me is to look at it, to just be able to see it. You see those little pictures that come with the show. That doesn't tell you what the directing looks like. That doesn't tell you what the pacing is like. That doesn't tell you what the script feels like. That doesn't tell you what the voice acting's like. That doesn't tell you anything. It really tells you nothing. I could start up a show and a lot of people say like, well, once you know what you like, couldn't you just, look at the chart and know what's good? No. Once you know what you like, then you can watch the first episode of something, and within 15 minutes you can know if you want to watch the rest of it or not. What was that one? Mada no O no Vanidus. There's a good example of a show that came out in the fall that I watched about 5 minutes of, and I dropped it. The reason is, A, I didn't like the character designs at all. The animation was really shitty, even though it was a fight scene. This is like the opening fight scene of a show. It starts off with a fight, and the fight looks like shit. bad choreography, bad directing, bad animation. So I'm thinking, okay, this show's obviously focused on fantasy battles, or that's a major component of the show, but they look terrible. I can't tell what's going on. I don't know what's happening. Everything looks like shit. And then it also looked very video gamey. It had, like, you know, all these attack spells and all this other shit. And it looked to me like it was either a video game adaptation or a light novel that is very video game influenced adaptation. And I'm not a huge fan of those a lot of the times, unless it's like Log Horizon, where it's more of a commentary on the nature of video games. And it was very quickly evident that I did not want to watch this show. Now, if I had heard something later, if people had been like, oh man, Mara no Ono Vanidus was really unexpected, it wasn't at all what you thought it was going to be in the first 5 minutes, then maybe I'd go back and try it again. But there's also plenty of shows where that doesn't happen, where people don't talk about it, but I end up liking it anyway. You know, like I said, I just watched Yu Shibu. That show is, I mean, it's a dumb fan service light novel adaptation, and people would group it in with everything else because it's got tons of fan service, tons of dumb boobs fly open kind of stuff, but it had the kind of characters I like. It had an interesting setting. The main character was totally boring, but it had enough going for it that I felt like it was a worthwhile show, and I never would have found out about it had I not just been watching everything. I've never heard anyone talk about it. I've seen pictures of it in Sakuga Wiki, because it has some like really nice animation at parts, but I basically knew nothing about this show, and I just was like, I'm gonna watch everything from 2013, and I've been marathoning first episodes, and that one came along, and I went, I'll watch another episode of that. My policy is you watch something until it's either lost your attention or has like actively made you think this is not for me, you know? Like, for instance, last season there was Trinity 7, and I watched 3 episodes of that, because after the first episode I thought, this doesn't seem very good, but it's really nice to look at, maybe it picks up. And then I watched 3 episodes and I went, this isn't picking up, I don't care. And then there's other shows where I watch 10 minutes and I go, oh, no thank you. The directing feels so awkward, the pacing is awkward, the camera shots are awkward. The show's gotta click, you know, but you can't know that without watching the show. So the reason I've dropped so many shows is because I watch every show. I watch at least some of every show, because otherwise I will never know if the show feels like my thing or not. I don't think it's reliable to go on anyone else's word. There have been plenty of shows I loved that no one else liked or didn't care about when it was airing. Back when Kurenai was airing, no one cared about it, and I loved it. Back when Kanan was airing, no one cared about it, and I loved it. Back when Bakano first aired, I mean, that show's gotten huge in the West after it got released on DVD here, but when that show first aired, it took forever to get subtitled, and no one talked about it. And I was one of the first people to see it and be like, this show's fucking amazing, you know? So yeah, you might miss out on great stuff, and then, you know, maybe you'll find out about it years later. And another thing is that a lot of people don't understand is that I have a strict policy of nothing is dropped forever. Nothing is permanently dropped. That's stupid to even think that you would drop something permanently, because your taste could be completely different years later. Or you could just get bored and decide you want to watch something that maybe you don't even expect to like. I had Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex dropped for like 6 years because I thought it was boring back in 2008. Now it's like one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. Oh, I'm sure there's other examples. A lot of stuff in my dropped list isn't because I think I'd hate it. It's because I watched like 1 episode for no reason, and then I didn't think I'd ever watch it again. Like Slam Dunk, recent example. My little brother's watching Slam Dunk like all the way through. So I sat in his room, I watched an episode or 2, and then I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to watch that, so we'll mark it as dropped because I want to have my anime list have all of the shows I've seen. So, yeah, I think people just treat the dropped list very differently from the way I do, I guess. People see it as like, oh my god, you dropped Attack on Titan? How could you? It's like, oh, if I want to, I can go watch it. It's right there. It's on Crunchyroll, it's on Daisuki, it's on wherever. If I want to watch it, I can. It's not like because I marked it as dropped, it has now disappeared from existence and I'll never be able to watch it again. You know? I've picked up so many shows that I dropped in the past, and there's a lot of shows that were actually, I cleaned out a lot of my drop list for anything that I knew I was going to try to watch again, and because people were bugging me about it. People were like, why did you drop Legend of the Galactic Heroes? And I'm like, well, I plan to watch that, so let's mark it as let's mark it as on hold so people will stop asking me. But yeah, that's why my drop list looks like that. That's why I think your drop list should look like that. Give everything a shot. You never know when you'll be surprised. And that's it.